Ukraine has to keep in mind that NATO was formed against Ukraine too when it was part of the Soviet Union. Even if Ukraine do not want to venture into a war with Russia, it would still have to go up against Russia. NATO will get the biggest battleground to attack Russia, and the biggest sufferers will be Ukraine as well as Russia. Cutting off relations for greener pastures and playing "your enemy is my friend" card. The next president of Ukraine would be the one who would not need a military alliance like North Atlantic Treaty Organization, popularly known as NATO, which was basically formed against a particular country, Soviet Union, which is today's Russia. Ukraine has to keep in mind that NATO was formed against Ukraine too when it was part of the Soviet Union. The next president of Ukraine would be the one who would end the conflict with Russia peacefully without being a pawn of NATO, Europe, or any other country or alliance for that matter. Zelensky was voted to power that he would be the server to the cause of Ukrainian people. Even his party that won the Ukrainian presidential election is named the servant of the people. He would be the one who would work relentlessly for peace and harmony, life, health, and education, and for the general upliftment of the Ukrainian people. No one should be a pawn of any other country or alliance. One of Zelensky's promises during his election campaign was to end the conflict with Russia. After becoming president, Zelensky is trying to deal with Russia along with NATO. Even all the previous Ukrainian presidents, after Ukraine disintegrated from Soviet Union, everyone took the NATO way to deal with Russia. All these links that I am posting here can be found in web, and I will also put the links in description. We can just see from these clips that all the Ukrainian presidents wanted Ukraine to be a member of NATO. These are the small pushes that each president have been doing to get a membership of NATO. Although Ukraine can choose where it wants to go, but to be a part of an organization which was formed basically against one country has led to more problems than solutions. If Ukraine becomes a NATO member, Ukraine will basically get latest ammunitions and probably NATO's armed forces. But NATO, on the other hand, will get the biggest ground to attack Russia, considering the fact that Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe after Russia, and yes, Ukraine will become a battlefield because of its geographical location, as it is right next to Russia. And the main sufferers will be Ukraine and Russia. It might become a long-time war zone, as I do not see the enmity between NATO and Russia ending any sooner. One important thing that Ukraine has to keep in mind over here is, if there is a war between NATO and Russia, Ukraine, although it does not want to enter into war with Russia, will still have to go up against Russia. That's not what Ukraine wants, or does it? The next president of Ukraine would be the one who would not only focus on trade with countries of Europe, but also with countries of other continents, including Russia. If we see some of the instances here, we can see that Ukraine is slowly trying to move out of Russian trade and enter into trade with European countries. Russia also has tried to move out, as we can see here that Russia is cutting off transit costs of its energy supplies to Europe through Ukraine. Russia is trying to be self-reliant here, but Ukraine looks like is serving off old relations for new ones, as we can see an example here of linking its power grid with synchronous grid of continental Europe, leaving Russia but aligning with Europe. We can also see that Russia has stopped the supply of nuclear fuel from 2010. This is where the main problem is, cutting off relations and playing "your enemy is my friend" card. Ukraine looks like is planning to enter into the European Union by 2030. But it should not cut off trade relations with Russia, is what I feel, but definitely be more self-reliant and do not again be dependent on countries in Europe, but trade with all countries, including Russia. Ukraine also need to have a track of why Brexit happened, and they also need to know why British came out of the European Union. I would not like to get into the details over here, but the gist of it is the industrial areas voted for Brexit, and opinion polls showed British wanted to have the ability to control their own laws, among other things. So basically we are talking about control over here. Ukraine might also be asked for the gas transit to Europe from Russia without proper remuneration as part of free movement of European Union supplies, considering Russia has one of the largest natural gas resources. The next war, God forbidding, if it happens, it will be a very devastating one for both Ukraine and Russia. So both of them should sit together and work towards peace. They should not be in war with each other in the first place. They should hold the trust of each other hand in hand. Both the presidents of Ukraine and Russia are on the verge of either amending their mistake or getting totally lost. The next president of Ukraine can still be Zelensky if you, Zelensky, really want it and work for it. If you like my videos, please do like, share and subscribe. Thank you.